Okay, so I want you to imagine a scenario in which you are a young girl and all you want is to be a singer. You sing in the bathroom, you sing on the way to school, you have your favorite songs that you sing along with, and you may sing a different key or another octave. You may have even added another verse. All you want to do is be the next Selena, the next Tony, the next Whitney, the next Janet. And then you get that opportunity. You meet somebody who is so famous in the industry, and they're so charismatic, and they're talking to you. They're telling you things about themselves. They're telling you how beautiful you are and how messed up they are and how they were molested as a child, and they're telling you all this really intensely personal things, and you guys are having conversations daily. You're having conversations weekly, and the conversations are lasting a couple hours, and you just have never felt more attended to and more loved, and you want to give that attention, that love back to that person. On top of the fact that that person is going to work with you, that person is going to help you get to your goals, and it's genuine. And you've been to the studio and you've seen the magic, and he's written a song for you. He's put you in the booth and he's let you sing. He's giving you directions, and it's great. But then you mess up. Maybe you spoke out of turn. Maybe you spoke over him one day and he gets angry at you, and you don't want that, right? You realize the error of your ways and you apologize because you made that mistake. And then the next day you do something else, and he yells at you, or he doesn't talk to you for a couple of hours, and you are just like so upset because this person that you have fallen in love with is now cold to you, and you don't understand why. You don't know what you did to cause this. So at this point, you want to do what you have to do to get back on the right track because you love this person, and this person loves you. And then a couple months go by, and you start to have sex with this person, and he tells you how it's the best sex of his life and how wonderful you are. And every time you have sex, it gets a little bit more invasive. It gets a little more weird. But you love this person loves you. You guys are in the studio, you're working, you're doing all these things together. Your family's okay with it. Everyone around you thinks it's so cool that you're with this person. And then it gets a little bit more intense, the sex. And then he brings out a video camera, and then he brings in another person. And before you know, it's a year has gone by. You have a lot of sex on camera. You cannot seem to be able to get this person to love you again. Those first 3 months, it hasn't been like those first 3 months in the last 9 months, and you can't figure out why. You can't figure out why you can't get back to those first 3 months when this person bared their soul to you. What have you done to cause this person to turn their back on you? He starts to tell you to call him daddy, put more rules on you. You can't talk to this person can't talk to you, because he wants you for himself. He wants you to stay focused. And then you look up and it's 2 years later, and you've alienated yourself from all your family, and you've done some really crazy things on camera, and this person tells you that he is the only person that loves you. He's the only person that cares about you. He's degrading you. He's making you feel stupid and unwanted. And you've been complicit in this for this entire time. What do you do? Could this have been you? I know it could have been me. All right, let's get into this. Hey guys, it's Wahima, but just call me Wah. Melanated! So in this episode, let's chat about surviving R. Kelly. Surviving R. Kelly is a 6-part docuseries that aired on Lifetime this past weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it was a doozy. And if you haven't heard of Surviving R. Kelly, then you haven't been on social media. Surviving R. Kelly is documenting indiscretions of R. Kelly from the time he first started in the industry to current present day. R. Kelly has had a sordid history, a sordid present, with dealing with women, specifically and especially young women. We start off the beginning of this docuseries talking to people who were in his camp initially. We talk to a backup singer, we talk to a former tour manager and personal assistant, we talk to his younger brother, and we talk to his older brother. We also talking to experts at this time so that we can get an idea and a glimpse into the mind from a psychological standpoint of what R. Kelly must have gone through. We start off with explaining that R. Kelly grew up in the projects in Chicago. He was always deeply connected to music. His mother was the choir director of their church. All of his siblings were deeply connected to music. Music was the one thing that got them through, a lot of the harsh times, specifically and especially gospel music. R. Kelly has always had a hard time reading. He's never been able to read. He's also, because of that, not been a very good writer. So not a good student at all. And they painted R. Kelly as sort of the runt of the litter, the kid who never went outside, who was too shy and scared to talk to people. So we get this picture of this very isolated, lonely child. Further along in episode 1 of the documentary, we realize, or we find out, that R. Kelly has been sexually abused. And it's something that he has spoken about publicly, about being molested by a family member. We had one of his brothers on there say that he didn't know if R. Kelly had been molested, but he knew it happened to him. So if Kelly said that he'd been molested, then he would believe it. I mean, our heart goes out to any child, any person who was molested, and he wouldn't say who the family member is. So we already see that there is, at least within their family, and it's probably indicative of a lot of families, just this desire to not name the person who committed the crime, protecting the person who committed the crime, right? Maybe that person has kids, maybe that person has other things going on in their life, and to expose them as a child molester would be opening the wound up all over again, and then opening the wound up for other people in your family, and you would rather just take that onto yourself and bury it away. So that's a heavy thing. It's a heavy thing to learn that he also has some form of dyslexia, which is what I'm assuming it is, that he has a reason why he can't read. It's a heavy thing to hear. And you automatically have sympathy for this person, which is fine to have sympathy for this person because what this person went through was egregious and terrible. And so as we start to get an idea of what it's like for the rise of R. Kelly, we hear from a former teacher that he went to Kenwood, I think high school, who taught there, and she is a music teacher who helped to cultivate his musical sound when he was in high school. And she said that he was a brilliant student, that he was very talented, but his lyrics were raunchy, and all of the angst and the things that were happening in his life came out through his music. And sometimes she had to censor him. Obviously, she had to censor what he was saying because it would be so brutal or so sexual in manner, right? And all the experts agree that a child, when they go through something like this at such a young age, they don't understand the power dynamic, and they see sex as a power tool. We start to see how this definitely affected him. At some point, Kelly dropped out of high school and he went about his business, and he started to be in those bands. He did Honey Love. He was with whatever, I think is MGM, and then another band that he was in the 80s. One thing that never stopped, though, is him coming around this high school. Like, R. Kelly never stopped going around this Chicago high school. There were people who knew that he would pull up in a Ford Explorer. They knew when he was at the local McDonald's, and he was just there talking to girls, laying the groundwork for what he was going to eventually end up doing. So R. Kelly eventually got a band together. He got his dancers, he's got his backup singers, he's got his musicians, and each person in these different camps aren't allowed to talk to each other. They are on tour together, so the backup singers can only talk to the backup singers. The musicians can only talk to other musicians. The dancers can only talk to other dancers. He kept every camp or group of people isolated. Now, I don't know how he explained this away. I don't know how anyone agreed to this, but it could be perhaps because they're all in a position where he is the master. They're all somewhat owed fealty to R. Kelly because he's giving them this opportunity to make money. Whether it is to be the musician that they've always wanted to be, the dancer with an up-and-coming artist, the backup singer, that they would have never gotten the opportunity to be a backup singer in any other case. They're just, some girl from some neighborhood who's actually backup singing, going on tour, making money, being able to provide for their family via a method which is something they've always wanted to do in their lives. I don't know about you, but as a creative person, to be able to make money at your art and support your family is the ultimate goal. Not everybody wants to be rich and famous. Some people just want to be working. And I think that as an artist, because it's not guaranteed for artists, right? Like if you're a civil engineer or you're a doctor or hell, you're even an electrician, you're a plumber, those things are kind of guaranteed. You can go almost anywhere and get a job. You can work for almost any company. But as an artist, there is no guarantee. If that is the thing you want to do most in your life, if that is the thing that you are the best at, there is no guarantee that you will be able to make money at your art. So the opportunity to make it is so rare. It may seem like there's tons of backup singers and there's tons of this and there's tons of that, but there's way more people who want to do it than people who actually have a job at it. And especially if you're poor and you're taking care of everybody in your household, what choice do you have? Who's ever going to give you another chance? People talk in this industry, and if you leave a band or a group under bad circumstances, or even if it isn't bad circumstances, but that artist talks mess about you, that could mess your whole career up, all because you didn't want to keep quiet about something that wasn't happening to you. Okay, so let's back up. So all the groups are sequestered, right? They can't talk to each other. But there's also this thing happening where R. Kelly is getting girls in his group, his backup singers, to recruit other girls that they know are singers to come. He's still going to the high school, picking up girls, bringing them into the studio. And eventually he starts having sex with them. One of the backup singers recalls a moment that she brought a girl into the group and he started having sex with her. Right there in the studio. She looked over and the girl was bent over in the studio. And so at what point do you say something? Because you brought your friend into this. And so everyone is blaming themselves for what happened, what this person did. No one is blaming R. Kelly, the adult. So then you move on to a situation with Aaliyah. Aaliyah first meets R. Kelly when she's 12 years old. Her uncle somehow is involved in the situation. And her uncle's there. None of the adults who have the children are privy to some of the things that are happening. Because this camp of people are so ingrained and taught to not speak to each other and to not discuss these things, no one thinks to tell Aaliyah's uncle that maybe Aaliyah shouldn't be there unsupervised. So there's some times where she's there with her uncle and sometimes she's not. And I'm sure Kelly is spitting the same game to her that he spit to all these other girls, how beautiful she is, how talented she is. And on top of this, he's actually making records with her. The other girls aren't actually making records, and if they are, they're doing backup work, sure. But they're not front running the way Aaliyah's front running. Everyone loves Aaliyah. All the girls want to protect Aaliyah. They're having fun with her. But they're all young as well. At 15, Aaliyah pops up pregnant. And R. Kelly runs to the tour manager, who had asked him previously if he was having relations with Aaliyah. And he told the tour manager, no, he wasn't. And so the tour manager believed him. Even though he knew that he had been having sex with other underage girl. But you know, if you put the blinders up, then you don't have to see what's happening. When I heard that he had married Aaliyah, I mean, I was young myself, but I assumed that her family must have consented to it. I didn't assume it was anything nefarious. So that's Aaliyah, and that's the biggest thing that happens. And everybody's kind of confused by it, but the parents don't make that big of a deal, and it gets annulled, and Aaliyah then moves on to work with other artists. But we never know what really happened with Aaliyah. You know, the way one of the backup dancers describes it is that they were all playing games, and they were, you know, having fun on the tour bus, and somebody opened up one of the doors to the main cabin on the tour bus, and R. Kelly was having sex with Aaliyah. The way she phrased it really caught my attention because she didn't say they were having sex. She said R. Kelly was having sex with Aaliyah. And Dame Dash has even mentioned, not in this docuseries, but outside of the docuseries, that Aaliyah wouldn't even talk about her time with R. Kelly. She wouldn't even talk about it to Dame Dash, and that was her boyfriend at the time of her death. So we don't know what really happened to her, but we do know that there was definite abuse. We do know that there was brainwashing. We do know that he is this monster that they paint him to be. And it's so interesting that we are so quick to say that these women are money hungry and that they're hood rats. But my question to you is, even if they are money hungry hood rats, do you think that they deserved what ended up happening to them? Do you think that a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old girl deserves to be degraded and filmed while having sex with somebody that she trusts, that she puts her faith in, that reels her in and brings her in and tells her that he's going to make her a star, or that he's going to provide for her? It's crazy. So the next episode we have is called The Pied Piper of R&B, where we'll really discuss R. Kelly's impact on the Black community. And how it's interesting that he called himself the Pied Piper. He named himself the Pied Piper of R&B. Because I don't know if you guys know, the Pied Piper is a fairy tale or a fable that denotes of an artist who comes to town and he comes to play and he does his work there, and then the villagers don't pay him. And so he says, if you don't pay me, I'm going to take away the one thing you love the most. And they didn't pay him. So he got on his flute and he played a tune which caused all the children to rise up from their beds in the middle of the night and follow him out of the town. And those children were never seen again. And this is a man who dubbed himself the Pied Piper of R&B. And I'm not going to front, I always thought it was weird because I know exactly who the Pied Piper was. And I was like, is he taking children? I don't get it. And I didn't get it. And he was taking children. R. Kelly has been laughing in our faces for years. The Pied Piper of R&B. So let's talk a little bit about his ex-wife and their dealings. So his wife, Andrea, was a dancer. And her brother, like I said, was a part of the band as well. I think he was security or something like that. And her brother, when he describes the situations that are happening or that happened during his time with R. Kelly, he doesn't actually say, yes, R. Kelly was with underage girls, but he does talk about knowing that there was situations of threesomes with very young girls. He says that R. Kelly, from his time, he knows for a fact loved two women. He loved Aaliyah and he loved his sister. Andrea ended up marrying R. Kelly because R. Kelly decided that they were going to get married. He sequestered her away as soon as he decided that he wanted her. And he married her without her family being there and without her consent. She showed up one day to the hotel, to their hotel room, and he had the band, he'd had the food, he'd had the priest, he'd had everything there except for her dress. And they got married in regular clothes with everything in this hotel room. And that was it. She was then later living in a house in Chicago or Atlanta, I'm not sure which, surrounded by security, not allowed to do anything by herself, having to knock before entering rooms, having to ask him if it was okay if she eat. Like all the things that he had done to the women that are currently in his harem, he did to his wife. So there are layers to this. R. Kelly sometimes groomed very young women to be a part of his harem. Sometimes he got other women to be a part of his harem. All based on the manipulation of him bearing his soul to these women, telling them everything about his childhood, and then slowly pulling back the layers and becoming the monster who physically abuses them, who mentally abuses them, who verbally abuses them, who financially abuses them, and who records them having sex and doing things that most of them considered to be deplorable, but they did it because they loved him. Now, I mean, guys, there are so many people who continuously say, oh, it couldn't have been me. That wouldn't have been me. As soon as he did this, I would have said that, blah, blah, blah. But when someone has video recordings of you in compromising positions, threatening to tell your family, threatening to expose you, your reaction would be to shut down. It wouldn't be to be like, I don't care, tell everybody. Because the same vitriol that we feel, the same vitriol that some people are feeling and giving towards these young girls right now is the same vitriol they would have gotten if they'd come out on their own. Everyone's like, oh, I would have did this, I would have did that. No. If a woman comes out and says that something happened to her, we try to figure out ways to blame her for it, to say how it was her fault. We're coming out with it now, saying that this happened to these girls. They're all in harems. They're being manipulated. And there are people right now on Twitter, on the internet, saying that they're hood rats and they're money hungry. So what does it matter? Should you come out? If people are just going to talk about you and break you down and say where everything you did wrong, even the parents of the girls who were involved, people are like, oh, your parents are so money hungry. That's what you get. That's what happens. That's what you get? Why? Why is that what they get? So Andrea's brother is, to me, also a complicit and a delusional person. If he thinks that R. Kelly loved his sister and loved Leah, R. Kelly doesn't love anybody. R. Kelly does not even love himself. So as we move on, we start talking about the court case and we start talking about the child pornography. We start talking about how he degraded this girl. I've never watched the video because to me, if that child was 15 years old, that was child pornography. And I wasn't going to watch child pornography. So the fact that got shipped everywhere and that was on VHS and everybody was able to see it, that shows how much they don't care about Black women. Everybody knew that that person was 15 years old, yet people are duplicating it and selling it on the street. That is child pornography that got sold on the street in the 90s. And no one cared because it was a Black girl. That should have never been sold. Ever. Not for 1 second. So we meet the woman who did it. We meet the woman who put the video out. We meet the person who was complicit in many of the acts that happened with R. Kelly and other women. Right now she's a woman, but at the time she got baited in with the same thing too. She was a fan. She thought that he liked her. She met him on the set of one of his music videos. And from there, she just felt trapped into doing everything that he said. She had to go forward with it. This is R. Kelly. This is a big deal. She's never going to be able to tell somebody the reason why she walked away from R. Kelly. And also, I think there's also this hope that it's going to get better. And then it never does. And I think this person, her name is Lisa. I can't remember her last name. I actually think Lisa is very brave. Javante Cunningham too. I think that they're very brave for coming forward and talking about all the things that happened while they were there. Because I don't know how old they were or when they became of age, but at some point during these abuses, they were of age. And they, at some point, had a responsibility to come forward and say the things that were happening were wrong and tell the police, and they didn't. Especially Lisa. Lisa was there having sex with underage girls with R. Kelly. She didn't know at the time. Could you imagine the amount of therapy one would have to go through? I mean, that's the reason why she let the tape go, is because she was on some tapes and she realized that she didn't want those out there. So she tried to get them away from R. Kelly. And with getting them away from R. Kelly, she gave them to somebody who made copies of it. And somehow it got to the papers, thank God. And then the papers turned it in to the police. And later on, she found out that R. Kelly had planned to kill her because of that. So she ended up copping to doing it and telling R about it, and they ended up trying to get somebody to get the videos back and paying people off to try to get the videos back, but by then it was already too late. The police did their due diligence to try to put this monster behind bars, but we the people let him go. And here's how. The trial was delayed for 8 years because his lawyers were trying to get the people to forget about the atrocities that happened. And during those 8 years, R. Kelly was just landing hit after hit. They tried to get the public to forget about it. And so finally it went to trial. And when it went to trial, they had a jury. And the jury, when presented with all of the evidence and all of the eyewitnesses and everybody who came forward and said, that girl is 14, that girl is a little girl, that person is this age, that's my niece, Sparkle. Like, Sparkle came forward and testified. I mean, everybody came forward and testified and said what was going on and said who that was. And the jury found him not guilty. And they had one of the jurors on the docuseries who said that he didn't believe one of the girl's testimonies. He didn't like the way she was dressed. He didn't believe her. Can you imagine sending a monster back on the street simply because you didn't like the way somebody was dressed? And so because of the choice of those jurors, in the minds of many people, there wasn't enough evidence, he was found not guilty, and therefore them sending their child around him was okay. And so now you have R. Kelly's present day harem, where the girls are 19 before he takes them away from their family, where he meets a 17-year-old girl and waits until she's 18 years old. He gets a super fan who met him at the courthouse, who was there every day, who he remembers, gets her to bring in people, bring in a friend. And that friend, he ends up doing things with, brainwashing. And that friend cuts her hair. He makes the friend cut her hair, dress like a boy, get a bunch of tattoos. And all of a sudden, her role in his harem is the role of a little boy. He's able to do anything with them that he wants to do with them. There are no boundaries. There's no one stopping them. He is a man with influence. He is a man with money and resources, and he has utilized all of them to keep the families quiet and to keep the girls quiet. It's not easy to walk out of a situation when you feel like you deserve all of it and you let it all happen and that your family will never accept you and that there's video recordings of it. I feel like I've just gone off the deep end with this. A master manipulator pedophile. Is R. Kelly a pedophile? Yes, he is. He may not be into prepubescent children, but he's definitely into young girls. Not all pedophiles are child molesters. You don't have to act on it. You don't have to be complicit in it. You don't have to watch it. But you could still be attracted to that and still be a pedophile. Okay, child molesters are people who act on it. Those are predators who prey and act on their inclinations, their sexual desires. It doesn't matter gender. It doesn't matter sexual orientation. Going after a child is going after a child is going after a child. It's just that in society that it happens so often to women, and it probably happens more often to little boys than we understand it, but it happens so often to girls that it's kind of something that we don't even really, and we think that a boy who gets molested, that is so much worse than a girl getting molested, because for some reason we hear about a girl getting molested so much that it sounds like it's kind of natural. All of it is bad and none of it is right. Not everybody has the resources and the ability to do the deep level of manipulation and monsterdom that R. Kelly has done. And we have been complicit in it. Because when we first found out, when the adults who first found out that he married Aaliyah, when he didn't get dropped from labels, when he didn't get taken to court, that was all a part of the things that were building his invincibility block. Now this man thinks that he can't be touched. And the final coup d'etat was him, and the final cherry on top of the cake of him knowing that he can get away with this stuff is when he went to a court of law and 12 jurors found him not guilty with all of the evidence placed in front of him. There's nobody to blame in this situation but R. Kelly and the people who helped him do it. It's so astounding to me. You don't remember yourself at 14 or 15 or 16, hell, 19, 20, 21. You don't remember how vulnerable you were. You don't remember how we were fed and taught that we should love the attention of men and that once we find a man that can take care of us, we hold on to him, especially if he tells us his whole life story and all we want to do is save him and help him and be the mother he didn't have. You don't know that? It could have easily been me. It's not about being money hungry. Poor people want to not be poor anymore. His own brother thinks that $100K is a lot of money. He tried to buy off his younger brother with $100K and a 1 record deal. And his older brother doesn't understand why he didn't take the deal because he could have been rich. $100K and a record deal? What's a record deal gonna do if you don't actually make a good record and sell a good record? There is a whole other thing happening if you have a brother who is a millionaire and you don't know that $100K is not a lot of money. That's basically the gist of it. I'm sorry, guys. This wasn't a recap. It was never meant to be a recap. I just wanted to talk about these issues because so to sum this video up, you guys protect your children. First and foremost, talk to them about these issues. Talk to them about manipulators. Talk to them about people who could take advantage of them. Tell your young girls that they don't need the affection of men and that it's not number one in their lives, and who cares how much money he has. And Black people, we let this happen by supporting this man this entire time. Make no mistake about it. We let this happen, and we said that our women weren't valuable enough. We blamed them, we blamed their family, and we didn't blame the person who was actually to blame, which is R. Kelly. You know, for the people who are saying, you know, why are we coming out with this now? R. Kelly been this way. Why all of a sudden? My question to you is, why not? Is there a statute of limitations when we can hold somebody accountable for deplorable behavior? For those people who are wondering, oh, what about Harvey Weinstein? And what about this? And what about Harvey Weinstein? We're not talking about Harvey Weinstein. It doesn't matter if this was happened a long time ago. It doesn't matter if these women are of age. It doesn't matter if these women were complicit. It doesn't matter if these women were gold-digging hood rats. It does not matter. Nobody deserves what R. Kelly is doing to these women. Nobody deserves what R. Kelly did to those girls. No one deserves it. You don't deserve it. And if you think people deserve it, you are mean. Okay? You are a heartless, mean individual, because it could happen to you and it could happen to your kid. Everybody knew, but now you want to do something. Ooh, what happened? What's wrong with Michael Jackson? Nobody did this to Michael Jackson. You're right. Nobody did it to Michael Jackson. But okay. So now we're doing it to R. Kelly. Great. So now we're here. It's neither here nor there. Has nothing to do with, oh, because it happened a long time ago, it shouldn't be brought to the light now. Or if it's happening to him, we should bring everybody to light. And we can do it for everybody else too. Now everybody has the resources, but R. Kelly is a definite threat, and he's doing this to Black women. And we don't care about Black women because we think they deserve it, because they are money hungry. You have no idea what it's like to be given the opportunity to walk away from poverty. You don't know, because that's why you're saying ignorant things. These manipulations happen slowly over a time period. They don't happen all in one shot. You get brainwashed into it. The same way you're brainwashed into thinking that the Black women's lives aren't worth anything, you were taught that. Slowly but surely, you were taught that Black women's lives aren't worth much. And that's why it's okay that he did this. So we're going to make up this whole entire storyline for all these people. Well, if they had parents and their parents are money hungry, and if they didn't have parents, it's because they're poor and they're money hungry. He just can't be wrong. Everybody has to be wrong in this. All right, you guys, so that's the end of this video. Down in the comment section and let me know what you thought of this video, and literally come with a good, concise argument. Because these girls should have never done this, that argument is tired and it's played. Really think about yourself, really think about psychology, really think about the levels of manipulation that happened in this scenario, and think if it could have been you. Think about just the regular girls who get caught up with no good ass partners because they're sold this fantasy of what this person could be or what the situation could or should be, and it isn't. And we're all living a low-key manipulation of our emotions and our spirits because all we want is love, and all we want is acceptance, and all we want is to save someone and to help someone. All of this is coming from an exploitation of people who have good hearts and who want to be good people. It's not an exploitation of money-hungry, greedy greets. Because if they were money-hungry, greedy greets, they would have been out of that situation a long time ago. Because from what we can tell, he's not actually giving them any money. They're not able to live this lavish life that they want to live if they have to ask and knock on the door and be quiet until he comes into the room to eat. They're not living the lives that you think that they think they're going to live. Because if they were really money-hungry, as soon as there was no money, they would have been out of there. This has been a hard conversation, and I'm going to film something that's going to make me smile. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and remember to be you, be true, and find your place. Be safe, and love yourself. Bye.